All right, welcome to Pick Six Mock Draft. Jeff and Nolan Kangas here. Nolan, how you doing, buddy?
Not too bad, buddy.
I'm doing okay here myself. We got some football coming up, which is great. We're starting this. We're actually doing this mock draft just literally a week before the draft, so there may be some movement, which we're going to talk about at the end of this one. But either way, we're just going to do our mock draft here, and obviously some rules here. Obviously, there's no trades. We don't really know what teams are going to make any trades, and I think that's kind of unfair. But also, me and Nolan are going to go back and forth. So, Nolan, you're taking the even numbers. I'm taking the odd numbers. So, I'm going first overall. And if we're set to Jet McGruber, I will get it started.
Sounds good,
All
buddy.
right. So, the first pick overall, I think there has been some mild debate about this one. In my eyes, I think it's pretty clear who you go with. To be honest, I think we need to address this. I don't think that they're the worst team. So I think that this pick is perfectly fine. I think you got to go Joe Burrow, right? Joe Burrow, number one overall pick. I think even like looking at it, maybe in a year, maybe Trevor Lawrence looks a little bit better. But I think overall, like Joe Burrow just showed us a lot this season, and I doubted him, to be honest with you, at first. But then when I looked into it more, it just seemed like, man, this guy can do a little bit of everything. He's got a little bit of that Aaron Rodgers mobility. He can throw deep, and he's always just going for that home run. I think he's got that incredible attitude, which we've all seen.
I think that's pretty obvious as well, Jeff. Now, I think Justin Herbert's probably the smartest guy in the classroom, but on the football field, it's clearly Joe Burrow. And I think you're right. And I think Mel Kiper Jr. mentioned this as well. He's not going to a god-awful football team, right? Like, you still have A.J. Green, Tyler Boyd. We'll see the situation with Joe Mixon. He said he wanted to hold out if he didn't get a new contract. I think that's kind of foolish if he does do that. But they put some pieces around on defense. Mackenzie Alexander, Trey Waynes, both two corners out of Minnesota who are now set in that Cincinnati defense. You get Joe Burrow, who's going to be a better quarterback than Andy Dalton. He already has solid weapons on day one. I don't think they're a playoff team, but I definitely can't see them being, I'd say, drafting in the top 5 next year. I think they'll be a pretty solid offense. You know what, Jeff? I'm going to go to the number 2 pick. I think we have this one as chalk as well. He's both of our number 1 players in our big board, and we'll get to that later. The Redskins are going to take Chase Young. Their defensive line is going to be built similar to the San Francisco 49ers. And you think about, they're going to spend a lot of first-rounders on their defensive line. Jonathan Allen, Montez Sweat, who they got last year, and now Chase Young, the best player in the draft, an absolute freak, who'll be playing on, I'd probably think, to start off the left side, because that's where he played quite a bit in college, even though they moved him around here and there. But to go to the Redskins, their defense, Ron Rivera is going to love a player like that. I think that's probably going to be, behind Joe Burrow going 1, the next most obvious pick.
I think so too. I think, while I do agree with you, I think there's got to be, I think, a conversation though, because I was thinking about this the other day. I think Chase Young, obviously, him along with Myles Garrett, along with Nick Bosa, they seem to be kind of generational pass rushers, right? They're amazing. I don't think there's any question about it. That's right. Like, they are. Chase Young is the top player on both our boards. You have to go with pass rush, but I think Ron Rivera just had pretty much his whole career with Luke Kuechly, right? And then you got Isaiah Simmons, who is my second ranked player. I love Isaiah Simmons. I think, while maybe there are some issues with his technique and everybody has holes in their game, I just think he's a generational player. And I think that there might be that conversation. I don't disagree at all, and especially with Ryan Kerrigan kind of on the way out. I think Chase Young's got to be the pick, but I think there might be that discussion. So I wouldn't be completely surprised if they went another way.
That's interesting to me as well, because their offense is going to be pretty bad as well. Can Darius Geis finally stay healthy? Adrian Peterson, I don't know how old he is now, 36 maybe, and he continues to put up yards. They need some help with their offensive line. Is Dwayne Haskins the answer? But you're right. Their defensive line is already the best part of their team. Maybe do they go Simmons? Maybe do they go with Jeff Okudah at 2 instead? I can't see that happening, but you're right. I guess they're going to think we're going to take the best player available, and it's probably going to help us in the end.
I think so too, and I think with a team that might actually be on paper the worst team in the NFL, I think you can't go wrong with taking the best player available. We'll start off now at number 3. I guess, with Young off the board, yes, Isaiah Simmons still out there. I think it's got to be Jeff Okudah. I'd be shocked if the Lions at 3 took anybody else. I just think that's insane, to be honest with you. You lose Darius Slay, And also, I mean, look, if in the future, you know, you got Matthew Stafford there still, there's always the potential with him and a good enough defense that you can challenge for that division. And I think the biggest thing in this division is most of the teams have at least one great number one wide receiver. You know, Devontae Adams, you got Allen Robinson. That's the number one thing to stop. Yeah, of course, you can try and put Aaron Rodgers on the ground, but no one has seemed to be able to slow Devontae Adams down at all. I think with Jeff Okudah, he's a great cornerback prospect, which you rarely get those great ones that are at his level. You absolutely have to take him.
I think so too. That's where I'd have Okudah going as well. And to me, it is interesting that, you know, Darius Slay, who, you know, Okudah's going to walk into the NFL and be a pretty good corner to start. Darius Slay would have been better. You're going to have to pay Slay eventually, and I think that's what they were figuring. They're not there completely yet to be competing to pay a guy like Slay all that money.
Yeah, I think he's no brainer there. Now the Giants also potentially one of the worst teams, to be completely honest with you, and they made some questionable decisions. So this one is almost a wild card to me, Nolan. But who do you have them taking at number 4?
It's really tough because I've been seeing a lot of things where it's, hey, we need a tackle to protect Daniel Jones and at least get some more help for Saquon Barkley trying to, you know, find his way out of that backfield because that line is terrible. But then I've seen some other things where they think they're in love with Isaiah Simmons and they think he could be their leader of their defense moving forward. So it's a tough one for me. And I think what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go tackle. And I think I'm going to go Tristan Wirfs out of Iowa. I think, you know, he's a, you know, terrific athlete. I think they can build around him. It didn't really work out with Nate Solder when they gave him a lot of money when he was formerly in New England. I think Jedrick Wills could potentially go there too. And, you know, I like Mekhi Becton. Andrew Thomas is rising. I think Wirfs just, Iowa, you know, always has these terrific guards and tackles. So why not take a technically sound player like that and Tristan Wirfs at number 4? Hey, they're going to have a high number 2 pick to go get, you know, someone who's going to fall out of that first round, and then they can maybe make some answers on their defense. But for right now, you need to protect your quarterback of the future, who's Daniel Jones. Why not get a guy like Tristan Wirfs?
Yeah, I think you can't really go wrong with any of these top offensive tackles in this one. You know, I don't think anybody could be mad if they make that decision because, you know, you got to protect Daniel Jones if that's the guy, and Saquon Barkley, he needs to be able to get a little bit of daylight there so he's not, you know, coming up with those high ankle sprains all the time in the NFL. Now we'll go to the Dolphins. So this one for me, look, I've heard this rumor a lot. You know, we've seen Herbert going there. We've seen Tua going there. I think, you know, and this is not what I would necessarily do, but I think that they'll probably go Justin Herbert. I really do. I think Tua, you know, I think Tua is the better guy, but I think it's going to be Justin Herbert. I really do. And, you know, Justin Herbert, from what I've seen, like some people love him, some people hate him. And the whole reason with that is he is just one of the most polarizing players in the draft. I mean, it's funny because I think a lot of people see him, they see that high potential, the speed, the size, the athleticism, you know, and that great arm. What's weird about him is actually he throws a lot of checkdowns. So that's one thing I think maybe is a bit of a misconception with him. I think he can do those things. He can throw the ball deep, he can throw on the run, but he actually favors like a lot of checkdowns, a lot of shorter throws. I think he's a work in progress, and I don't know. Do you think that the Dolphins can actually protect him or Tua from having kind of a rough start to their NFL careers no matter who they pick?
You know what? It's tough because I've seen a lot of the same things where a lot of people think Miami might go Justin Herbert instead. To me, I think they spend so much money in free agency. They maybe don't necessarily want to go a year of waiting and seeing how Tua's injury progress is. So that's why I think they might go Herbert instead. Maybe it's a little bit more of a project, and I agree with a lot of stuff you said about Herbert as well. He has a cannon of an arm. He's got an absolute fastball, I guess you could say, but can he throw with touch consistently? And the thing is, he doesn't have too many weapons. You got Devontae Parker, who probably had his best year as a pro yet. Who else is going to help him there? So they're definitely going to have to figure out the situation at receiver. They have Mike Gesicki, who's a really talented tight end as well. They have a really bad offensive line too. So it's going to be a tough situation, but whoever they take here, they're going to build around. And it's not too bad having a guy like Ryan Fitzpatrick who can help out in the locker room, a really smart guy. as well. So if you pair, a guy who is an academic All-American in Justin Herbert and a Harvard grad and Ryan Fitzpatrick, that can be pretty solid in the locker room. So I don't mind the pick, but I do have Tua over Herbert as well. So I guess that leaves me with the Chargers. And to me, I think a lot of people are concerned with what Tua's injuries are, but you need a quarterback in LA and you need to sell tickets, and Tua's going to do that. And I think right away with the weapons he would have in Keenan Allen, who's one of the best route runners in football, Mike Williams is such a great 50-50 guy. Austin Eckler, they gave a little bit of money to. And I think Tua's used to having a running back who can catch out of the backfield, where, say, Jordan Howard isn't as great as that in Miami. To have a guy like Austin Eckler, they can improve their offensive line. So if you get started with Tyrod Taylor in the first few weeks, and then, hey, Tua's healthy, let's go, let's roll, that's a really talented roster. So that's why I have the Chargers taking him.
Yeah, I think that's a good pick. And, I've also been a little bit unsure about Tua as well. I think the biggest thing for me is mostly just, I think you look at me and you see this is a really smart guy. Really smart guy. He's really accurate. He seems like a really well-schooled quarterback. He's got the athleticism that you want, that you kind of need at this point in the NFL. But my biggest question is how much was the talent helping him? Yeah. He had the best receiving core in college football. He had a great offensive line. He had a great defense that would make sure that he was never really in any trouble. That doesn't mean that he's a soft guy at all. I think he seems like, by all accounts, great guy, great work ethic. I just think that we don't know exactly how good he really is. But I love the pick there. For the Panthers, this one is tough. I mean, they could go a lot of areas. I think that they have to go, though, with Derek Brown from Auburn. I think he's just massive. And I think he's just also so scheme diverse. He is a beast of a defensive tackle. So I think he's a pretty easy one there. I don't think, no matter who you got, I think, building that defense around him, you just lost Luke Kuechly. Help Shaq Thompson in the run there a little bit as well. And maybe as well in the pass rush. We'll see.
You're absolutely right, Jeff. He's my number 2 player in this draft. He's an absolute freak. And you see in the game against LSU, he had 9 tackles. He was probably getting double teamed a lot of the time against some pretty good guards and centers, against that Tiger team. He's going to be an absolute stud. I'll be honest, I was a little surprised at the pick. I thought you were going to go Isaiah Simmons here with the loss of Luke Kuechly, but they have a lot of holes on that Panthers roster. This isn't going to be a good team. Maybe their offense is a little bit better. You get a guy like Teddy Bridgewater, Christian McCaffrey, and DJ Moore, who I really like. But hey, Derek Brown in the middle for a decade, you can't go wrong with that.
I absolutely agree. I mean, I think it's Isaiah Simmons. I think pretty much for all these pretty much all top 10 teams here, I think Isaiah Simmons has to be in consideration for me personally. But I think that, I don't think the NFL maybe knows the value yet of that hybrid position. And is Isaiah Simmons maybe clean enough there too to 100% go with him over some other guys like Derek Brown, who seems like a sure thing.
And you're right. And so now I'm slated here at 8 with the Arizona Cardinals. And it's tough because if Derek Brown was on the board, I'm taking him right away. With Chandler Jones and Derek Brown, that would be a really solid defensive line. You do need to get Kyler Murray some help, though. So I think I'm going to answer to that offensive line. And now I got to decide, do I go Jedrick Wills or Mekhi Becton? Mekhi Becton is a big boy. He's an absolute freak. But I think it's a more sure thing taking the guy out of Alabama and Jedrick Wills, who I think might fit in right away and be better for this Arizona Cardinals team, who they're not afraid to make big moves. They tagged Kenyon Drake and they make the big trade for DeAndre Hopkins. So I'm going to slide in Jedrick Wills Jr. from Alabama here to help Kyler Murray.
I love Jedrick Wills. He's my top rated tackle. I think with Wirfs that we already got, and then Becton, of course, is a massive freak at offensive tackle. I mean, he looks like Justin Peters to me almost with his size and athleticism. And I think Wirfs has at times been a little bit overshadowed, but it's not to say that he's a bad athlete. He's a really good athlete. He seems like the most, really ready offensive tackle. His technique seems great. They always talk about in the NFL, you always hear, especially Mike Mayock or DJ, always talking about the bend of a guy. Like Tristan Wirfs can really get down on that stance, and he looks so comfortable. He looks flexible. He can move, but he's still strong in that offensive tackle stance. And I love that you can play him at either right or left tackle. It probably doesn't. It doesn't matter. And I love Wills at that pick for the Cardinals. For the Jaguars, I mean this is kind of tricky. I mean, you could go so many directions here. I think they're set at wide receiver there. But I think, man, this is tough. Simmons is there, right? But you know what? I think we're going to go 2 straight tackles here, Nolan. I think we'll go Becton as well there. Ensure that no matter who is standing back there, if that's Trevor Lawrence next year, that you got a great offensive line, and that you got some receivers that can catch just about anything down the field. Build around no matter what quarterback is back there coming in the next 10 years.
I like that pick. I was a little bit surprised because I thought you would have gone defense, but you know what? Isaiah Simmons in this position, you got a guy like Miles Jack who's kind of similar to what Isaiah Simmons does, and corner, I think it might be a bit early to take a guy like CJ Henderson, but you're right. I think their goal, they want to get Trevor Lawrence. Maybe they don't get Lawrence. Maybe they get Justin Fields. You need a guy to protect him. So I do like that pick. I like Mekhi Becton. He's an absolute freak. So now that leaves me with the Cleveland Browns. And I think they need to take a tackle as well. But with a guy like Isaiah Simmons on the board there, how can I say no? They got their right side figured out with Jack Conklin. They're not really set at linebacker. Christian Kirksey's out the door. Joe Schobert's out the door. You got to take Isaiah Simmons here. So I think they'd fall in love with that pick. He's going to be the centerpiece of their middle. You already have a pretty good pass rush with Myles Garrett. Yeah, I'm shocked he's available there, but yeah, I'm gonna take Isaiah Simmons at number 10 for the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, and I think obviously with the Browns, Isaiah Simmons, I mean, man, I really hope for his sake he doesn't fall that far. But I hope that whatever team gets Simmons though can utilize him. I think that's the key with him. Does the team even maybe want to play him at safety? I don't think so. I think you got to play him closer to the line of scrimmage. I think that makes him so much more versatile and utilizes his skill set a lot better. You got Andrews in Baltimore, who you got to really lock down probably in the next couple of years. I think he looks like the guy for Lamar Jackson. So I think that's actually an amazing pick that really helps them close the gap in however many ways that they do it. I think ultimately probably the best pick, and their defense really does need some help, and Myles Garrett's getting some extra coverage on the back end. That's awesome for them. Now for the Jets, I mean, the top tackles are off the board in this case. There are so many good receivers in this draft, and you probably could go a little bit later. But I think CeeDee Lamb just looks too good. He's too good to be true, and you just lost, Robinson. I mean, you got to give Darnold something. And I think also, even in the long term of it all, I think receiver is actually a better position to go with him because of the way he can extend the play. The offensive line almost, not that it doesn't matter, of course it does, but I think to his skill set, you need a receiver that can just get open and we saw the combine, that amazing, pirouette catch. I think that you have to go with CeeDee Lamb there. I think he's a no-brainer for them. I mean, almost any of the top 2 to 3 receivers are a no-brainer for them.
You're right, Jeff. And I think the only way they would take a tackle is if one of the guys slip. Even if it's Mekhi Becton, I don't think they take him. I think they're set. If Wirfs or if Jedrick Wills falls to them at 11, they need to protect Darnold. If those guys aren't available, let's give him a number 1. And CeeDee Lamb is absolutely a number 1 wide receiver. He can absolutely do it all. And he can block, too. There's some times where he'll blow up a corner or a safety trying to make some room for a running back, or whether it's Jalen Hurts or Kyler Murray scrambling. So I love that pick for the Jets. He's going to be there for a long time. So CD at 11, 12. What do the Raiders do here? Because right now they have some needs too. I think wide receiver is a big need. Corner is a really big need as well. But hearing some stuff and listening to some stuff as well. CJ Henderson is a really talented corner, not a great tackler. Right? He's more just a ball hawk. But if you need a guy to get down and try and tackle a guy like Travis Kelce or a guy like Tyreek Hill in open space, I don't know if he can do that. So let's give them a wide receiver. I'm going to take the guy who's not the burner, but more who's a clear-cut number one route runner as well. I'll say Jerry Jeudy here. And I think that would fit really well for whether it's Marcus Mariota, whether it's going to be Derek Carr, whether it's going to be another quarterback that they draft at the end of the first round, or whether it's in the second or third. Jerry Jeudy with Hunter Renfrow, Darren Waller, who had a spectacular year as a tight end there. They're already set at offensive line. They're set at linebacker now, getting a guy like Corey Littleton from the LA Rams. So I think Jerry Jeudy at 12 would be a really solid spot there for John Gruden's offense.
Yeah, I love Jerry Jeudy. I think, I do rate CeeDee Lamb, just a little bit higher than Jeudy. I think he's just so smooth, though, in the open field. I think his route running's great, and man, those Alabama receivers have a really good pedigree, so it's tough to not go with a guy like Jerry Jeudy. Now the Niners, I worry a bit, losing a great guy like DeForest Buckner. I think he's just such a great player. But they moved up in this spot, and I think could go one of two ways. I think they need to add another offensive weapon, because I think receiver really is lacking. I think corner is a place that they could go. I don't personally know if you go CJ Henderson there. But I do think you need to figure out what's going to happen when Richard Sherman really starts to decline at some point in time in his career. There's obviously, Javon Kinlaw up there. But I think a lot of people just love Henry Ruggs. And he is, full transparency, he's only my 32nd ranked prospect. But, a lot of people just love what he can do. And I think he can be a really, really great player. So we're going back-to-back Alabama wide receivers with Henry Ruggs.
Yeah, the thing about Henry Ruggs is I think he could fit better in different offenses. So with Kyle Shanahan, I think he would prefer to have a much better route runner. He has a guy like Deebo Samuel who can do it all. He has a guy like George Kittle who can absolutely do it all as well. So I think he'd need someone who's more a clear-cut, just talented receiver more than a burner. But they do need a wide receiver. So why not get a guy who can stretch the field? And you look at what beat you in the Super Bowl, right? It was Tyreek Hill's speed and McCole Hardman's speed. So you have a guy who can, stretch the field as well in Henry Ruggs. I think that makes sense for them. Though we're going to get to the Broncos in a little bit. The Broncos, I think if they don't get one of those top three receivers, they're going to be extremely disappointed. They're going to do whatever they can to trade up to get one of those guys. So now I'm left here at 14. All the best receivers are off the board. So for the Bucs, they're already set at wide receiver. I do think they have some holes on defense, but they are in a win now situation now. Of course, with Tom Brady being there, their offensive line isn't that great. So why not get the best tackle available, which is going to be Andrew Thomas at 14. I think you could lock that one in stone. I think they're going to take a tackle regardless, unless an extremely talented player slips to them. So I'll put that one in chalk. Thomas 14 to the Bucs.
I love Andrew Thomas. I do like Austin Jackson too out of USC. He's sort of been a riser. He's one of the younger players in the draft. He's only 20 years old. I love Andrew Thomas too, and both of them have in common is that they are just both great anchors on the left side there, the left tackle position. Man, I don't think you can go wrong. And I think there is some talk about getting a quarterback, but I just think that that's so wrong. When you get Tom Brady, when you're investing that much money, you absolutely have to build around him, and you got the weapons. You need to make sure that he is protected no matter what there if you're Bruce Arians. And I think that's going to help them, with their ability to push the ball down the field like I think Arians does want to do. So I love that pick. I love Andrew Thomas. Now, at 15, like you said, the Broncos probably would, I think, move around with this one. But I do love Justin Jefferson. I do love that guy. I think he is so great. He seems like such a competitive guy. I think he shattered a lot of doubts with that 40 time. I think his ability to go up and get the ball, his body control is some of the best we've seen in this draft, right up there with CeeDee Lamb and those guys. So I have to absolutely go with Justin Jefferson there.
I like that pick, Jeff. I like it a lot. What was shocking to me, obviously LSU was a pass-heavy offense. He had 111 catches. For a college player, that's pretty insane. So to put up those numbers in that offense, and you're going to go to the Broncos, Cortland Sutton's going to be the number one. Jefferson can play outside or inside. So wherever Drew Lock wants him, he's going to love that. They don't have too many holes on that offensive line. Is Melvin Gordon going to be the number one running back? Is it, are they going to rely on Philip Lindsay? I don't know. They're going to have some questions on defense for sure, but they need a receiver bad. And if Justin Jefferson's available there, I think they'll love that pick. That's a really nice one, Jeff. So now 16. So the Falcons, I think they need a corner. They really do need a corner. But I've heard they're also in love with Javon Kinlaw out of South Carolina as well. I'm shocked Kinlaw is available. But your secondary is that bad. And they gave up on Desmond Trufant. So I think they're going to take, the best corner available, who's going to be C.J. Henderson here out of Florida. I already mentioned not a great tackler, but he's an absolute ball hawk for them. Their offense is going to be, unbelievable. Now, if Todd Gurley is, at least a shell of himself of what he was in 2017 and 2018, they're going to be pretty happy there. I love Matt Ryan. Julio Jones is a top 3 receiver in football. Yeah, I'm going to do it. C.J. Henderson is 16, and I think that's who, they love to have as well.
Yeah, I think they do, and I think I think he's been like one of the biggest, over the last couple of days. How many times have you heard C.J. Henderson's name just rising up the boards into the top 15, top 20 picks? He wasn't like there was at one point, I think, like everybody was saying there's a massive gap between him and Okudah. And I think there still is a pretty sizable gap, but I think Henderson is a really good shout to maybe even go higher than this in some drafts. Maybe even maybe the Niners do pick him, maybe and help out that secondary there. I think at 17 though now, the Cowboys probably would have loved to see him fall that far. I don't think that they really don't have a chance of taking him there. I think the fact that Javon Kinlaw is there, you have to take him. He's a guy like similar to Derek Brown who is so diverse. Like he's just a game wrecker, and what a story. What a story that guy has. I think you have to absolutely go with Javon Kinlaw. Sure, okay, like maybe the cornerback you love isn't there. I do have some good cornerbacks, and I think you do as well, Nolan, in your top top 45 there. The guy from TCU, of course, and you could go there, but I think most teams love Javon Kinlaw, so give me Javon Kinlaw at number 17.
Yeah, love that pick. I think they'd take him as well. Travis Frederick retires, maybe need some help at offensive line. Unless one of those top 4 guys falls there, they're not going to take one. So I think that makes a ton of sense. Get the best player available. This is still a really good roster. Kinlaw in the middle there forever. Wow, that would be pretty unreal for the Cowboys. Alrighty. So now we go to the Dolphins. This is their second pick. They've already answered to the quarterback position, which is Justin Herbert. So some other needs. They need to fix that offensive line. I have a running back that they could use. I don't know if there's going to be a running back going in this first round unless it really works for their offense. I think this is tough, man. But I think what they're going to go is offensive line. You already mentioned his name, Austin Jackson of USC. 20 years old. You already have a young quarterback now. You're going to build him with a young offensive lineman who's going to be protecting his blind side for majority of their career. So Austin Jackson of USC. He's a little bit lower on my big board. I actually have Josh Jones out of Houston a little bit higher, but I think they like the potential ceiling of Jackson a little bit more. So Austin Jackson at 18 to the Miami Dolphins.
Now the Raiders got their second pick, and we're going to start to see a few here now. A couple of teams here with multiple picks in this draft. The Raiders, another team that really are going to have a tough time going wrong here, and just looking at the big board, but also keeping in mind who they'd likely take. You mentioned Josh Jones, and I think that's a great shot, but I think their offensive line is pretty good. I think their biggest issue realistically is edge rusher, and there isn't a lot of great ones, but I think we might see a surprise here. I've heard this name mentioned quite a bit more, more and more now, and I think they're going to go with Yatir Gross-Matos out of Penn State there. I think a lot of people love his potential, and some people have compared him to, JPP, Jason Pierre-Paul back in the day, and I think he looks a lot like him. I think a lot of people are looking at more of a ceiling. He does have sort of a low floor guy. He's one of those guys, but I think he could be a solid pick for the Raiders and to help chase Patrick Mahomes down in that division.
Yeah, a little bit shocking of a pick. I thought you were going to go corner there, but you're right. You've seen some stuff from Gross-Matos, especially playing in the Big Ten. You're facing some big boys on that offensive line, and he made them look like little boys. So, I think that's a good pick. A little bit, higher than I thought he'd go. I still think he's certainly a first rounder, but still, Gross Mastos to the Raiders. Okay, so now we get to 20, the Jags, their second pick. We already said we think they're going to trade out of 9. They already answered their offensive line in our draft, taking Mekhi Becton. They got rid of Calais Campbell. I think they have Josh Allen as an edge rusher. This is tough because Kinlaw's off the board too already. Let's go, back-to-back edge guys. I'm going to go K'Lavon Chasen out of LSU. More freaky, right? He's not, technically sound. He's not like sort of like a guy like Chase Young. He's just an athlete. Let him run. And, you mentioned that, guys who have that bend, he can bend further than most tackles can to get around and, take a quarterback out. We saw that a few times for the LSU defense. So I think if the Jags can get him, pair him with Josh Allen, they still have Taven Bryan, who's I believe they got him at 30, back when they were in the AFC Championship. So they're creating their own pretty solid defensive line. And, they already have Mekhi Becton, but it's all going to be moving forward and seeing what happens in the future, especially in the next 2021 draft. But Chason would be a pretty solid pick for the Jags at 20.
Yeah, Chason's an interesting one. The only thing, I guess, would be, a mild concern. But I think Josh Allen coming out might have had some similar concerns, is the size. But he is so fast, man. He is so twitched up, like you said. He's so fast, and he's versatile, right? I mean, if you wanted to, you could maybe even play him at linebacker. So, if Doug Marone's not there in a year and you got a guy that likes to run a 3-4 defense, he's perfect for that. I think he works either way. I really like that pick, and he's fallen quite a bit, Chason has, in the last couple of drafts that I've seen. Now the Eagles. I mean, I think you have to probably go wide receiver there with the outcry from the fans. Defensively, I don't think that they have a lot of needs. Maybe they could stack up at corner there. But, man, I think the corners, as much as I like them, I don't know if a lot of NFL teams love Johnson out of Utah. So I think, man, this one might be a bit of a reach for them, but I think they gotta get some weapons for Carson Wentz. He's gonna be struggling back there, and I love this guy. I think he may have dispelled some doubts with his pro day 40 time, and that's Jalen Reagor. Absolutely love Jalen Reagor. Some people had them taking Ruggs, but Jalen Reagor is a guy that goes up and gets the ball. He kind of reminds me a lot of Steve Smith, the way he's just so competitive and feisty. Will go up and get that ball. He's small, but he's so fast. He's competitive. He's stronger than he looks. He can jump higher than he looks. I think he's a great weapon to add to the Eagles roster, and someone that, Carson, and maybe you don't have to take him deep all the time. You can go underneath and just utilize that what I think is very underrated speed. He ran a sub 4.3 at his pro day there. So I go Reagor for the Eagles.
Jeff, that's my favorite pick you've had so far. I love Reagor. And the thing, his numbers in college aren't going to jump off the board. He had terrible quarterback play. When you look over the last 2 years, the quarterbacks threw 30 as well. Reagor would be terrific with Carson Wentz as well. I think they could have gone linebacker there, but you're right. Their receiving core was absolutely terrible. So to get a guy like that would be pretty solid for the Eagles. Reagor, love that pick, Jeff. So now, Vikings, 22. Obviously, diehard Vikings fan, so it's tough. They trade away Stephon Diggs to the Bills, so that's where they're drafting in this position now. They could answer wide receiver here. None of those guys are there for me, but they do need some help at corner. And this guy, I absolutely love Jeff Gladney out of TCU. He's feisty. He puts his hands on the receiver and he wants to hit you in the mouth. Right? He's not a guy like C.J. Henderson who's a ball hawk. He's not maybe more technically sound like Jeffrey Okudah. He's just a nasty corner who's going to go tackle the short stuff. He's going to blow you up on a huge hit, whether it's just, a screen, anything like that. I think he fits that Mike Zimmer defense. A nasty player to play on the other side of Mike Hughes, who was another first rounder a couple years ago. I think they take Gladney at 22.
Yeah, I know you guys got a lot of picks there as well. In the top 100, you got 4 there. You got even 105 just a little bit after that. And there's so many receivers. They people have been talking about it the whole time. There's so many receivers. You can go anywhere to replace Diggs there. I think there might be one guy you might like. Obviously, you guys got another pick coming up in this first round here, and I love your pick there, Nolan. But now we got to go with the Patriots, and I don't think that they're going quarterback here. It seems like they might draft one. They might even completely toss this pick and go for pick up more. They might go with somebody completely random. Let's go with AJ Epinesa. I think that's a great guy. Set the edge. Make sure that they got a few defensive linemen and help that pass rush, help the great corners that they have. I don't see the Patriots picking wide receiver. That's not really what they tend to go for. They could go maybe another place on the defensive line or offensive line. But I think AJ Epinesa is kind of a Patriots kind of guy. He's a smart guy. He doesn't have necessarily all the physical tools, but I think he's a fantastic guy. Stop the run, set the edge, and he can be a versatile guy too, which is always what they look for, especially on the defensive side of the football.
Yeah, Jeff, if we did this mock draft, say, last year, a way too early mock draft, he would have been in the top 10. And I think the reason he's falling on boards is maybe his speed. He's more a power rusher and not going to burn you like a Clavon Chasen out of LSU. But when you look at the numbers, right, he had 22 sacks in the last 2 seasons, 8 forced fumbles, right? So he's going to turn the ball over and get you the ball back. So I think that would be a really good pick for them. I had them either taking him or Yetur Gross-Mastos, who's already gone off the board. So that's a nice one. I do like that pick, Jeff. All righty. So now we have the Saints. I'm not a big Saints guy. You know that. And a lot of people, I've seen so many, people say with their mock drafts, oh, this might be the best roster in football. But why didn't they beat the Vikings in the wild card round at home? I don't know, just a random thought. But what the Saints should do here, they've got a good offensive line. I'm not going to take a quarterback. You're in a win now mode. Why waste a first rounder on a potential project when Drew Brees signs for one more year? They got Malcolm Jenkins. Their corners are pretty set with Marshall and Lattimore. Let's go linebacker here. And I think you could flip-flop. I think it's either going to be Kenneth Murray or Patrick Queen. Patrick Queen played at LSU right down the road. So let's go Patrick Queen out of LSU going to the New Orleans Saints.
I like that pick a lot, Noel. I really like Patrick Queen. I think he's another guy, one of those fast linebackers that can cover. There's a few good versatile linebackers in this class. They're not like the best of the best we've ever seen, but they're all very versatile. They can all do multiple things. I like Patrick Queen. I like Kenneth Murray. I think both are great picks. And, with their linebacking core there, they couldn't really go wrong with either one. And I think, though, that there does have to be some debate, right, about maybe taking, if they like him, obviously, a Jordan Love, because then you could sit him for at least a year before Drew Brees goes on to NBC there, which, I mean, that's going to be a crazy one if that actually does end up happening soon. Drew Brees, it doesn't have much longer in the league, but I do think that you can take a quarterback next year once you won the Super Bowl, right? Like if that's where they're aiming, and I think they're just on the cusp. I think adding to their already stacked roster is definitely what they need to do. All right, so I got the other pick here, the final pick here for your Vikings, your Minnesota Vikings. Now this one, I mean, you already sealed it there with the corner there, Nolan. So I mean, I don't think they're going there. They got Gladney. I love that pick. I'm gonna take a guy, and man, we already got a few of these guys already here in this draft. And I don't know if you love him as much as I do, but I absolutely love DENZEL MIMS. I love DENZEL MIMS, his ability, to go up and get the ball. He's so fast. He's big. I think he's got really good hands. And yeah, I think you made the point actually that maybe he doesn't run the full route tree, and that is definitely a concern. But I think his ceiling is so high. You got a great guy like Adam Thielen there to kind of coach him along and help him out there. I think that would be a great weapon to add for Kirk Cousins, especially down the field, because I think that is maybe what you sort of lost out there with Diggs. What do you think?
Yeah, you know what? With Reagor off the board, which is what I'd love to have him there in Minnesota. I'm not high on DENZEL MIMS. You know that. He's actually not in my top 45 because of the questions of his route running. But hey, if you go to Minnesota, you have a terrific route runner in Adam Thielen, who you're right, can teach him. Thielen's not a 50-50 ball guy. Their 50-50 guy to throw the fade to, we saw him in the playoff game, it's Kyle Rudolph. So if you have two potential guys like that, Rudolph on one side, DENZEL MIMS on the other, and Thielen running through the middle, that would work pretty well. You're right. He's more of a project. The one thing I'm a little bit worried about, and I don't think the Vikings will do it unless Justin Jefferson or Reagor is there. Well, Reagor might be on the board, but I like him a lot. If Jefferson's there, they're going to take him. If he's not there, they might wait for a wide receiver. And I think the reason for that is they're a little worried to take a wide receiver in the first round because of what happened to Laquan Treadwell. He was absolutely terrible in Minnesota. We know what happened. So many drops and so many disappointments. And it's tough to see that the way his career went in Minnesota. Hopefully he turns it around in Atlanta. They might be a little bit worried to take a receiver there. MIMS is a project, but it could end up working in their favor when you have really good receiver in coaching and a really talented receiver to help him out. So not bad there. MIMS at 25. So now 26, Dolphins, their third pick. To me, I'm looking back at this draft, I think they probably would have packaged their two picks to try and move up and get one of the guys who fell, whether it was a guy like Isaiah Simmons or Javon Kinlaw. But here at 26, so they got their quarterback in Herbert. They have their tackle in Austin Jackson. I think they need another weapon. I think they could go on defense as well, but I'm going to take a receiver. So we'll go back-to-back wide receivers here. And to me, the next guy on my board, I'm not really high on Brandon Ayuk, to be honest. I think a comp for him is Sammy Watkins, but a lot of his catches are where he gets by the DB or the DB makes a poor play and it's yards after the catch. I know Daniel Jeremiah talks a lot about that. I like T. Higgins a little bit better. In big games, he stepped up. We saw him in the national championship game. He had some huge plays against Alabama in the year before. He does have Trevor Lawrence throwing him the ball as well. Justin Herbert has a cannon as well. Higgins is a good 50-50 guy. He can run pretty solid routes. T. Higgins squeaking in the first round might be a little bit surprising. And the reason for that, his combine and pro day numbers didn't jump off the board to anybody. And he was kind of a disappointment. But in game, I think he's a little bit better. So I'll put T. Higgins at 26.
Yeah, I think I've seen that too. T. Higgins, the worry with his pro day and all that. I love his, he's really lanky, but he's strong. When you see him like shrug off tackles, and I think he's probably a little bit faster than his 40 time was. And I think just generally his hands are great. And, like we said earlier with Alabama, Clemson's got a great reputation for building great receivers, right? So, what is their floor? Sammy Watkins? That's not really that bad. That's a top, that's at least your number two. So T. Higgins, I think that's great. I think, him and Parker, with a tackle, with a great quarterback that we got up there in Justin Herbert, or if it ends up being Tua, I think that's awesome. I think that those are some great weapons there. I have a question though. Do you think that the Dolphins have so many picks in this draft? If they didn't see a guy that they like, and it looks like maybe they might, there should be tons of guys that they like, but if they don't love them, then do you think that they maybe trade out and try to get more in the next draft?
That's an interesting thought. There are teams who, a lot of people say Atlanta really wants to trade up. So I wonder if they get the guy at 16. And a lot of people are saying that Atlanta might try and get a quarterback in this draft, which is really interesting because I really like Matt Ryan. So let's say the Dolphins don't have their guy, and there's a teams who don't have first-round picks, the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Los Angeles Rams, who might say, hey, let's squeak up there. The Buffalo Bills as well. Though the Buffalo Bills probably wouldn't make a trade with the Miami Dolphins, I think you're right. They're going to try and get as many picks as possible to build this football team moving forward. They were terrible last year. We all saw that. They've got a really good coach, though, and I think that would be interesting if they did trade down. This next team, though, before I get to doing Seattle, I think it's going to be pretty obvious. I think Seattle's going to trade out of this spot. They do that quite a bit, and that's been the report, is that there's a few teams that are going to definitely trade up. This is a team that's going to trade down. They're going to try and get more picks. But at 27, who would you have the Seahawks taking?
I think, edge rushers should be nailed on, but a few of the good ones in this draft, and there's not really a lot, are already gone. Clowney hasn't been picked. So, yeah, I think you're totally right. I think this trade is probably, someone's going to move up. Maybe one of the guys that, maybe regrets trading one of the first round picks, and we'll talk about those guys. But the Seahawks, man, you would hope that they're smart and protect Russell Wilson. Let's go with, the hopeful there and go with Lloyd Cushenberry out of LSU. I think he's, people don't love, teams don't tend to love, drafting an offensive lineman that high. But I love Lloyd Cushenberry. I think he's great. I think he can anchor you, and he can play guard or center. So I think he's an easy pick there for them if they do keep it, which we don't think that they will.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. For a long time, their offensive line has been really, really bad. I think they're set at wide receiver. Their defense, I think that's going to be the thing, whether they figure it out. If they get Jadeveon Clowney back, they're certainly trading out. But that offensive line is pretty bad. I don't mind that pick with Cushenberry. I think Cesar Ruiz would be an interesting pick there as well, but Cushenberry to 27. Not bad. Okay, so now we have the Ravens. This is a team everyone thought was going to win the Super Bowl. I think they're going to be back in a position, to potentially compete for that. Their wide receiving core is really, really bad. This is a really, really deep wide receiver draft, and I think that they're going to pick a receiver later. So let's go with maybe something that helps out their defense. They're set on their D-line, I think. They probably have I'd say the second best corner tandem in the NFL. Especially with Marcus Peters and Marlon Humphrey. Earl Thomas is playing over top. So let's get a guy in the middle. So let's get a linebacker, Kenneth Murray out of Oklahoma. Maybe he doesn't fall this far, but they'd love to get a guy like that.
Yeah, I think Kenneth Murray is a great one there. I think the Ravens could go a few different directions. I think Zach Baum would kind of be interesting there, but they're in such a good position. Some people have said, I heard DJ in one of his mock drafts actually say that, they're like this pick's getting traded, and maybe he knows something we don't. Do you see that happening, or do you think that they'll just take another great player and try to add to what's already a pretty damn good roster?
They're going to take best player available. I can't see them trading out of the spot. They're already a really talented, deep roster. You have a good coaching staff. You have, Lamar Jackson. I've seen a couple mocks where they take a running back, and I don't think that makes too much sense. When you have a guy like Mark Ingram, I really like Justice Hill out of Oklahoma State from a few years ago, who they picked up. So, yeah, they're going to be running the ball more than any other team in football. Why spend a first rounder on another running back when you already have a capable one in Mark Ingram? Sure, a guy like DeAndre Swift or Clyde Edwards-Helaire would be pretty talented there. Fix what burned you in that football game against the Tennessee Titans. You couldn't stop Derrick Henry. If Kenneth Murray was playing there, he'd just be following wherever Derrick Henry was going. So I think taking a linebacker there makes sense, and taking the best player available.
Yeah, I think Kenneth Murray would definitely help them out. And, losing CJ Mosley, they got to replace him. I thought that was kind of a big loss. But, Ravens are a smart team. It's tough to doubt them. And with the great defensive line, I think they can really open up a lot of holes for him to, stop the run, get some tackles for loss. The Titans, you just mentioned the team that stopped them. I mean, they did franchise tag Derrick Henry. I don't think that they're going to go running back here. And we have one of the biggest needs at cornerback. And a lot of people have this guy going a little bit higher, but he's fallen here. So let's go with Christian Fuller out of LSU. Another good. I think he's kind of the Patriot prototype, which is Mike Vrabel's kind of school of thought. I think Fulton goes there. I'm not exactly as high on him. I don't really love him. He had Stingley over there, which means he got tested a lot. So, but I think overall, adding another corner definitely couldn't hurt. I think you need pretty much 3 nowadays in the NFL anyways.
No, you're right. I think Fulton would be a good pick there. Logan Ryan's out the door in Tennessee. Adoree Jackson right now, I guess, is your number one corner because Malcolm Butler's kind of fallen off a little bit. So you're right. That would be a really young corner tandem. But Christian Fulton still has all the talent in the world. So I do like that pick, Jeff. So Fulton going 29 to the Titans. Now I gotta draft for the dreaded Packers. And it's interesting to me. There's been a guy I've had going in every single mock draft possible at 30 to the Green Bay Packers, and that's Laviska Shenault Jr. out of Colorado. But I don't know if I'm going to do that quite yet because, again, a really deep receiver draft. I don't think they're going to take a quarterback in Jordan Love when you were in the NFC Championship. Don't take a guy there. So what killed you in that NFC Championship game was that defensive line for the San Francisco 49ers. So let's go get an offensive lineman. So let's take Josh Jones. He's probably the best tackle available yet out of Houston. He's actually number 19 on my board. So I think that would make some sense there. Not a sexy pick. I know they need some more weapons for Aaron Rodgers because really all they have right now is Devontae Adams. They need a tight end eventually too. But let's go there. Let's go tackle at 30, Jones.
Yeah, I think at this point, all the receivers are pretty much off the board. I wonder if that many receivers will actually end up going in the draft, but that's how we have it. It's definitely going to be an interesting one. Now we got the two teams that made the Super Bowl, the Niners, with their second pick, they already took Henry Ruggs. I got him again here. And we've been mentioning corner, but man, a lot of the corners are pretty much gone here. Defensive lineman. Let's go with a guy that I really like at TCU. Let's go Ross Blacklock at TCU. A lot of guys like him. He's quick, he's fast, he's strong. He can rush the passer, he can stop the run. He's so versatile. And then and in a lot of ways, hey, you could have gone with Javon Kinlaw here, but now look at it now. Like, it looks like a lot of the good receivers that you might have used or picked with that position are now gone. So you get a great defensive tackle. Not as maybe as high potential as Kinlaw, but I think Blacklock's going to be a great pro regardless. Now you got the Chiefs.
If I can go back to 31 here, Jeff, that would be an unbelievable draft. If they can get Henry Ruggs at 13 and Ross Blacklock at 31, I do think the Niners are going to trade out of that spot. And the reason for that, I don't think they have a second, third, or fourth round pick, which would be pretty wild. So they might stock up and get as many picks as possible too, especially now that you have 2 first rounders. But if that fell for them and they said, hey, we can replace Buckner right here, getting a guy like Blacklock, and then we already have our burner and Henry Ruggs, how could you trade out of that spot there? So that would be really interesting. So Blacklock at 31. So let's go 32, Kansas City Chiefs. So the needs I have for them, I think they're set on offense. I don't think they need to spend a first rounder on a running back. I know it'd be really cool to get a guy like DeAndre Swift or Jonathan Taylor. But they just got DeAndre Washington as well. So they have some weapons there at running back. Corner would be one that should be answered. So I think they are going to go corner, and I think they're going to go A.J. Terrell out of Clemson. And, he got beat up pretty bad against Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase destroyed a lot of players this season out of LSU. He's going to be a top 5 pick. He's unbelievable. But Terrell against other talent, he was really sound and a really good player. So I think the Chiefs take a corner there. There's no sense in fixing what's not broken, which is their offense. So that defense struggled at times. Their run D came along a little bit better near the end of the season with Chris Jones. So I do like that with AJ Terrell, another corner.
All right, yeah, I love that one too. I think that's there's a few places on that defense. I think Patrick Mahomes in that offense and Tyrann Mathieu as well, Chris Jones. There's been a few guys on that team that have been amazing players that have been covering up a lot of holes for them. And I think now, corner is probably one of their biggest needs. And I think they do need to help, make sure that Patrick Mahomes doesn't always have to come back for them, with a 24-point deficit in every single playoff game that they're playing. And especially if they want to repeat and use Andy Reid while they got him still. But yeah, I think that's a great pick. So that rounds up the draft. That about does it. I love the picks. We will take a quick break, then we'll come back and fill out a few questions. Hey everyone, I hope you're enjoying the mock draft with me and Nolan. We had a great time doing it. If you liked the video, please make sure to give it a quick thumbs up and of course share it with your friends so they're not bored during this time. Obviously, it's a tough time for everybody right now, but let's get through it together, and a way to do that would be helping us grow this channel and of course interacting with us. So leave a comment below. Let us know what kind of stuff you guys want, because ultimately we're here to entertain you. And of course, subscribe to Lingo Sports. All right, we're back here with the Pick 6 mock draft. We just finished up the draft now. We got some questions here for you, Nolan. The big one here obviously is, what is this draft really going to look like? Obviously, it's going to be a lot of Skype or Zoom stuff. And, we've been hearing, all these owners and these coaches try to figure out all this technology, and a lot of coaches didn't even like it. They didn't, or owners didn't really like it. They wanted it to be moved, and maybe when it was more of an easier time for them. So I guess the biggest question is, what does this draft look like, and what are the struggles going to be for all these owners and teams and these players as well that they wouldn't normally have?
Well, I think this draft is going to be really unique and kind of bonkers. Is I guess a way you could put it is the top 10 is going to be pretty sound. Other than that, there's going to be a lot of teams trying to trade up, trade down. And there's not going to be there might be some surprising picks, but you think of the smaller school players, I think it's going to be a struggle for them to get into the first round. So you look at a guy like Jeremy Chin out of Southern Illinois. A lot of scouts have him as their number 1 safety, but you can't get him in the door for, many interviews. You can't really see his physical capabilities, and you can't really test him and see that. So that's going to be interesting as well. So that's why I think it's going to be kind of taking the best player available for a lot of teams, or thinking what is their biggest need. So it's going to be weird for sure to see. I think it's going to be a lot of trades. And I think what we've seen a lot of is, you look at the tackles, a lot of people have them, flip-flop, whether it's Wills one, Wirfs one, Becton one, Andrew Thomas one. It kind of all depends. Receivers, I think nearly every team would probably have CeeDee Lamb as their number one. But is it Judy at the 2? Is it Ruggs at the 2? Is Brandon Ayuk, the number 5 guy, or is he the number 12 guy? He didn't even reach our mock draft, right? Denzel Mims, he reached our mock draft. He's not in my top 45 players, right? So I think it's going to depend on a lot of different things and whether it fits their scheme, right? So there's going to be some really odd picks, and there's going to be some that, everyone's going to assume. But I think the thing that's going to be seen in this draft is a ton of trade, whether it's trading up or trading down.
So you think that through the whole draft, or just for the first round?
Certainly for the first round. And you think a lot of teams like the Steelers, the Rams, the Bills, they don't have that first round pick. So if, the way the draft is falling, and, you think of a guy who might be falling on down the board, Zach Bond, if a guy like Tua is falling down the board, which has been a lot of reports because of his injury history, some teams might be calling and say, here's what we're offering to get up, so they have a chance of getting a guy like Tua. So I think that could be very interesting as well. So I don't think that's going to necessarily happen maybe in rounds, say 4 or 5. But when you get to day two in that rounds 2 and 3, Jordan Love, where does he fall? What team trades up to get him? Jalen Hurts as well. Jacob Eason, you and I both really, really like, because he is an absolute cannon. The Bucs really liked him early on. Are you going to take Jacob Eason in the second round, even though you have Tom Brady? Right. So I think that's going to be a really weird draft, something that we're not used to at all.
For sure. Yeah. I think it's going to be interesting to see, I wonder, I highly doubt, especially the first round, you got 15, 20 minutes, I think it is. And the idea that owners and stuff would run out of time to run their cards up would be crazy, but that would be kind of interesting. Maybe it might happen. But let's move on now. The biggest risers and fallers. So I'll start first with my risers. I got Justin Jefferson. I think so many teams seem to question his speed, and I guess his size. He's kind of got more of a slight build. He doesn't look that strong. I think he is. I think he looks like a beast for me. He might be one of the most underrated receivers overall in this entire draft. I think he's better than Ruggs. Not quite as good as Judy or Lamb, but I think his potential is really, really high. I think anybody that gets him is a steal. Ross Blacklock, I've been hearing so many people talking about Blacklock. He seems like one of the best interior rushers in the draft. He's going to be, I think, a steal, especially towards the end of the draft, which is where we had him. And Zach Bond. I know that you have something a little different there, Nolan, but I think Zach Bond is just so versatile. The way he can rush the passer, the way he can play in zone. He's so versatile. I think there's a lot of teams, especially in that sort of, that playoff sort of area of the draft, those teams, I think they'd love to get a guy like him. So I think he will sneak into the first round. And for your risers, Nolan, you got, who do you got for us?
So my risers, I am Justin Herbert. And I think the reason for that, he's 20th on my big board. But I think a lot of teams are concerned with the injuries to Tua. So, and I think a lot of people are realizing Herbert is 6'6". He has an absolute cannon. That's similar to what Josh Allen was, but he's way more accurate than what Josh Allen was coming out of school and facing better competition, right? And they saw in that Rose Bowl game his athletic ability. He's going to rise up some boards, maybe even go ahead of Tua. I also have the cornerback, CJ Henderson out of Florida. We mentioned this before we hopped on. Peter King for Sports Illustrated actually mentioned, I believe it was 40% of GMs had him higher than Okudah, which is crazy, but I don't know why that is. But even Chris Sims actually had CJ Henderson as his number 1 corner and Okudah as his number 3 corner. So I think he's going to rise up potentially even into the top 10. But my highest riser is going to be Andrew Thomas. He's going to be a top 10 pick, and the reason for that is because Becton might fall. I still love Becton because he's just a bad boy, and he wants to hit you in the mouth. But Jedrick Wills and Tristan Wirfs are going to be most likely top 8 picks. Now, what do the Chargers do? That's where it's going to be interesting. Do the Chargers decide, we don't like Tua, we don't like Justin Herbert, let's take a tackle? Then that's where Andrew Thomas slides in and probably goes 10 to the Cleveland Browns. So those are my risers. Now, if I'll say fallers, Zach Bond was a riser for you. He's falling for me. And the reason for that, a diluted urine test at the draft combine. And I think there's just too many good DNs to get us started. Chase Young is, are both our number one player. I like K'Lavon Chasen. You like Gross Mastos. Epinesa is really talented as well and bigger guys than what Zach Bond is. Thing is, Wisconsin creates some really talented, pass rushers, J.J. Watt, T.J. Watt, who, went probably later than what they should have. I think he might still go in the first round, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's in the second round. Quarterback Tua, the injury history, he's going to fall. And I don't think it's crazy to think he could go out of the top 10. Will it be a mistake? Maybe, but that's why I'm falling in. Trayvon Diggs out of Alabama, he might go in day 3, which is crazy to think. I think there's the gap between a lot of the corners, Okudah, Henderson, Gladney, who I really like, Jalen Johnson out of Utah, Christian Fulton too. And then it ends up being Trayvon Diggs, who got bullied bad by Jamar Chase. And, that happens quite a bit. Obviously, we mentioned that before. He won't go in the first round. I'd be absolutely shocked if he ended up there.
Yeah, I think Trayvon Diggs will fall. I think even maybe Fulton may fall out of the draft because there's always some surprises, right? It almost never works out the way you think it will. So I do think Diggs is definitely a good shot to fall there. Maybe, I don't think quite a third round pick, but maybe a late second round pick potentially, unless there's some very needy teams that need a cornerback. So for my fallers, I got Laviska Shenault. I just think the injury killed him there. I think that was the last thing he needed is to pull up with that injury, have another surgery. I know, it's tough, right? College it's a small sample size, right? It's 3 years and then you get injured once or twice. And, I even would say he's a little bit injury prone. That does worry me. Some guys, they don't love his route running. Some people love it. But I've seen a lot of times he's at least starting to fall towards the end of the first round, maybe out of it completely. You already mentioned Tua, so I won't go there. And another wide receiver is T. Higgins because of that 40 time, at his pro day. And even when you look at his highlights too, Nolan, sometimes like he's getting those 50-50 balls, which is great. But at the NFL, these guys are going to be bigger, stronger, faster. They're going to know how to defend you a lot better. So I do think T. Higgins, with the stack receiving draft, I think that he will fall out of the. I think for sure he's falling out of the first round. To be completely honest with you.
Now, if we can go back to the receiver, so you had a riser as Justin Jefferson. I think that's going to happen for sure, especially if Jets, Raiders, Niners all go receivers. The Broncos, if they don't trade up, they're going to have to take Justin Jefferson. The Eagles love Justin Jefferson. I don't think he makes it to 21. I'd be absolutely shocked if he was available there. So he's definitely a riser for me. And Laviska Shenault Jr., he isn't a number one in the NFL. I think he fits better with team schemes. So say it's San Francisco, you already have a guy like Deebo Samuel. It wouldn't really work to have two similar players, right? But let's say maybe a team like the Denver Broncos. We already said they're going to take a receiver. Hey, you have Courtland Sutton, who's a clear-cut number one future superstar. This is a guy, Shenault Jr., who can do it all, and you already have Melvin Gordon and Philip Lindsay, so they could run a ton, and then you have Drew Lock throwing some cannons. So I think it's more team fit with Shenault Jr., but he'll likely go in the second round. You're right.
I think so. So now, who are some of the guys on your big board that you absolutely love, and you probably know that they won't go the first round, but you think maybe, if you were an NFL GM that you might take them the first round. So who is that guy for you?
It's tough. I think we both like this guy. I'll mention him quick, but then I'll get to a running back. So Jalen Reagor out of TCU. We had him going in the first round. I would be shocked if he ends up there, maybe because of his size. 5'8", small running back. Running backs going in the first round, unless it's a generational talent like Saquon Barkley, I don't think we're going to see it as often as we once did. But he can do it all. He would fit perfect with, say, the Chiefs' offense, the Buccaneers' offense, any team like that who throws quite a bit because he has a terrific route tree for a small guy. And against Alabama, he had 180 total yards, 4 touchdowns in Tuscaloosa, right? He's an absolute stud. I'd love to see him go in the first round. I think he's going to go in the second. He's actually my number one ranked running back. I love him. I love Reagor. Those are probably my two guys I love the most.
I love them all too, Noel, and I think a lot of what you mentioned there is like the size and sort of the position. I guess it's not the premium position, so they probably won't go there. I absolutely love Reagor. I really hope some team realizes his talent. I don't think they will. I think they're going to look at the combine numbers. I think they're going to look at some of the stuff on the field, and I think it might cloud their judgment. I just think he's an awesome player. I think he's a gem. I think if he goes to maybe even the third, I think he's a steal, man. I absolutely love Jalen Reagor. Another guy I really do love that I think is definitely going to be docked on his size and maybe a little bit understandably, but I think Antoine Winfield Jr. is just, oh man, he's awesome. He's awesome. He can play just about anything you want. Nolan, you know how much I love safeties. I just think a team, especially like, Chicago Bears that didn't have a first round pick, if he falls to them, oh man, you got to take him. You got to take him because of his versatility. He can play zone. He can cover guys out of the backfield as well. I think he's great in the box. Sure, his size doesn't seem to, you don't love that, 5'8", I believe he is, and I understand that, but man, he's a playmaker to me. I think you absolutely have to take Antoine Winfield. I think, for me, in all honesty, I think he should be sort of that late first round, or maybe almost in the teens, not quite, but I think he's awesome, and I don't think he's going to get picked in the first round, maybe middle of the second, potentially.
I like Antoine Winfield Jr. as well. And I wonder if teams, because I think safety might be the most confusing position for a lot of these GMs. Is Jeremy Chin the number one guy? Is it Xavier McKinney? For me, I had Chin as my number one safety, then McKinney, and then the rest of my 45. I probably would put Winfield over Delpit out of LSU. But you're right. I'd be shocked if he went in the first round, but I like him a lot too. And especially when you have a dad who played in the NFL as well, he can coach you up quite a bit too.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. So we'll go buyers and sellers. So obviously with our draft, it's going to be I think it's going to look very different because I think even going into this next coming week, Nolan, there will be some more activity because, you don't know what this draft's going to look like. I think it's scaring a lot of NFL owners. So who are the big buyers and who are the big sellers in this draft, at least in the first round?
So Denver Broncos, I think they're absolutely going to move up because they need that receiver as well. So, hey, if they're lucky enough to get a guy like Justin Jefferson, awesome. But I do really think they are in love with getting a guy like Henry Ruggs to be the deep threat to Cortland Sutton being on the other side. They're going to move up for sure. I'd be shocked if they didn't. Someone who's trading out is going to be Niners at 31 and Seahawks at 27. Already some, really talented rosters. I think they just need more picks. And at those spots, unless someone falls or unless you're absolutely in love with someone, they aren't going to take him. So I would say Broncos are my team that's going to be absolutely buying, and Seahawks and Niners selling.
Yeah, I would agree with that. No, I think so too. So let's go with these have been the two big topics, right? Like. And it is a lot of times in most drafts, but this one especially with the wide receiver and the quarterback position. We had 7 wide receivers going in this first round, and there is a lot of needy teams with that. But I'll just come around and say it. I don't think we're going. I think we're going under 7. I think maybe. I think CeeDee Lamb, I think Judy, I think Ruggs is probably a lock, and I think Jefferson is a lock. So I think we'll go with those 4. Maybe if it sneaks in, but I'll go with 4 or less. Maybe Ruggs even doesn't even quite make it in this first round. Potentially, I've been hearing that a little bit, that he's been kind of slipping a little bit, and so yeah, I don't think we're getting 7. I think 4. Nolan, what do you think?
I'm going to go more than 4. I think for sure CD, Judy, and Ruggs are, could go in any order. I'm going to say I don't like it, but MIMS is going to squeak in there too. I think Higgins falls out. I think Reagor falls out. A lot of people really do like Brandon Ayuk out of Arizona State. So I think Ayuk could squeeze in. So I guess that's, 6 that I have?
That'd be 6, yeah.
I wouldn't be shocked if there's 6 receivers that go in the first round. 7 would be, what we had would be pushing it. I think we got Reagor in there just because we love Reagor so much, and the Eagles. If none of those 4 were there for them, they need to take someone. But I think 6 wouldn't be surprising. If a lot of people are saying there could be 8, which would be incredible if there's 8 receivers taken in that first round. But yeah, it's definitely a loaded receiving class, that's for sure.
Absolutely. And now the position that you almost never really know, usually it's more than people think, more often than not, but there's a lot of polarizing ones in this one. Quarterbacks. We had three in ours. We had Burrow, Herbert, and Tua. We didn't have Love. We didn't have Eason sneaking in there or From or anybody sneaking in towards the end. How many quarterbacks do you really think are going to be in this one?
It's tough to me because I think unless the Patriots really like Jordan Love, then I can't see him going in the first round. And some people have said that the Chargers really like Jordan Love. I just can't see it. That roster is too talented to maybe say this guy's a project, but yeah, let's throw him in on day one and see what he can do with this already, magnificent roster. So I'm going to say 3. I think Herbert's a lock. I obviously think Joe Burrow is going to go number 1, and 2 is a lock. Unless the Patriots say, hey, we're fine with Jared Stidham. And to me, it doesn't make sense I know the Saints probably need a quarterback eventually. Taysom Hill isn't the answer. You already know how much I think Sean Payton's nuts saying that. I just don't. I think that roster is too good to say, yeah, let's go take a quarterback who's going to be behind Drew Brees anyway. And same with the Packers to say, I know they did it with Brett Favre and picking Aaron Rodgers, but it doesn't make sense to me. So I'm going to say 3 for sure.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I don't even think Herbert should be a first round pick, to be completely honest with you. Some people think I'm absolutely nuts for that. I just see way too many inconsistencies, but I did pick him at the Dolphins there for their first pick in this draft. I do think he is going to go regardless. I think honestly, look, he's the same thing with Herbert, but I think Jordan Love is good, and I think there are they got the same issues. They're very flashy. One play you got this, the next play you got a completely different thing. You got a pick six or you got a touchdown, right? I think there are so many teams that seem to love Jordan Love, and also are kind of willing to, kind of say, hey, you know what? He got a big coaching change. The talent wasn't there, and he had some issues. Okay, fair enough. I think regardless, he's a project, but I do think he will be the 4th one taken. I think it probably will be the Saints because he's more of a project. And if you're Sean Payton, you probably think, you know what? We need to start thinking about what we can do to make sure that, if Drew does leave in the next year, we got someone that can keep us going, because this is a talented roster. And if you don't have a great quarterback there, or at least an average one, then there's no chance they're making the playoffs.
Yeah, to me, I think Jordan Love, if he went before Herbert, I wouldn't be shocked, because it's going to be a team that isn't ready to win right now and says, let's build this for the future. If he went before 2, I think that's an absolute mistake. He doesn't have the same talent Alabama has, but against LSU, I believe he only completed 50% of his throws and had 0 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and under 200 yards, whereas Tua threw for nearly 420 yards and however many touchdowns, 4, right? So I think that would be a huge mistake. I know there's the injury history with Tua, but when you lead the FBS in interceptions like Jordan Love did, you can't be doing it as a win now mode. That's why I think he's going to be a project for one of these teams, whether it's New England, Green Bay, New Orleans, maybe it's Tampa Bay in the 2nd round. We'll see.
We'll end it there. This was awesome. I love doing this sort of thing. We'll see if this sort of thing pans out. Maybe we found some gems. Maybe we kind of illuminated for you guys, the viewers, what might happen, what to look for in this draft, and maybe some guys to keep an eye on, and some guys you can be kind of rooting for to get picked a little bit higher or fall to a good fit. Nolan, I hope you're staying healthy. I hope everything's good with you, man. And I can't wait for it. I can't wait for the NFL draft to start, man. I mean, we've all been dying for it.
This is the most fun I've had in the 3 weeks I've been stuck inside. So it was definitely a blast doing this, Jeff.
Awesome, Nolan. Thank you. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll catch you next time.